All right, let's get right into it. We're talking about semiconductors. You know, those tiny silent brains that are inside pretty much everything we use. They're this invisible force that's shaping our entire world. And today, we're going to break down why this industry is about to see an absolutely incredible explosion in value.
And when I say incredible, I mean this: $1 trillion. That's a number that's almost hard to wrap your head around, right? But what does it actually represent?
Well, here's the thing. This isn't some far-off sci-fi future. We're talking just a few years down the road. The industry is on track to jump from about $600 billion today to over $1 trillion by the end of this decade. That is a massive, and I mean massive, leap.
And it's kind of wild, because that entire trillion-dollar industry, it all boils down to this little thing right here: a single, unbelievably complex piece of silicon. So the big question for us today is simple: what in the world is fueling this unprecedented growth? Let's get into the two biggest reasons.
First up, your car. Or, well, maybe more accurately, what your car is becoming. The whole auto industry is going through this profound change, and semiconductors are right at the very heart of it.
And I love this quote because it just completely reframes how we need to think about vehicles. We got to stop seeing cars as just mechanical things and start seeing them for what they are now: powerful, rolling computers.
And this whole transformation is basically a perfect storm of three huge trends hitting all at once. Cars are going electric, they're getting smarter and more autonomous, and their features are being defined by software. Every single one of these shifts requires a crazy number of new, more powerful chips.
This is even changing the very architecture of the car's brain. So it used to be that you'd have hundreds of little separate controllers, each doing one specific job. Now we're grouping them together, but the real game changer is what's coming next: a single, central supercomputer that runs the whole show. Think of it just like the processor in your smartphone, which lets you get over-the-air updates that can add brand new features literally overnight.
So what does this actually mean for chip demand? Well, look at this jump. In a basic car, you've got about $500 worth of semiconductors. But in a fully autonomous car, that number skyrockets to $5,000 or even more. That is a tenfold increase, all driven by the need for advanced sensors and some serious computing horsepower.
So, where specifically is all this new demand coming from? Well, the biggest growth is in three key spots: that high-performance central computer we were just talking about, all the advanced driver assistance systems that make autonomy possible, and the complex chips you need for electric powertrains. These three are the heavy hitters, the real engines pushing chip demand in cars through the roof.
Okay, so that's driver number one. The second one is just as massive, if not more so: the rise of artificial intelligence. The explosion we're seeing in AI has created this bottomless, just insatiable demand for computing power.
This chart here really tells the story. The amount of energy needed to power the world's data centers is expected to more than double by 2030. And pretty much all of that new demand is coming from AI. That incredible energy use is a direct proxy for the sheer number of chips that are going to be required. But here's the catch: you can't just keep throwing more of the same old traditional general-purpose chips at this problem. The amount of data that AI needs to process is so huge that it demands a totally new way of thinking about chip design, one that's way more efficient.
And the solution is this: the ASIC. It stands for Application-Specific Integrated Circuit. So instead of a jack-of-all-trades chip that does a lot of things okay, big tech companies are now designing their own custom chips that do one thing, like run AI models exceptionally well. They're faster, and maybe most importantly, way more power efficient.
And you can see the market is already shifting, big time. Right now, these specialized AI accelerators make up about a third of the chips in data centers. By 2030, they're projected to be the majority, overtaking everything else. That is a massive transition in a very, very short amount of time. So let's zoom out for a second and put all the pieces together. You have these two huge world-changing trends: the computerization of our cars and the explosion of AI, and both of them are demanding more and more powerful semiconductors. This is the path we're on. The growth is steady, it's relentless, and it's set to cross that trillion-dollar line right at the end of the decade. This isn't some kind of market bubble, it is a fundamental shift in our entire technological landscape.
So, the key takeaway is this: while the whole semiconductor market is growing, it's these two sectors that are really pulling the entire industry forward. As you can see, they're both projected to have double-digit annual growth rates. That's just a way of saying they're expected to have consistent, powerful growth year after year, outpacing everybody else.
And at the end of the day, this is why it all matters so much. These chips aren't just components in our phones or our cars anymore. They are the fundamental building blocks, the very foundation for nearly every major innovation that's on the horizon, from AI to autonomous systems to what comes next in computing.
And that brings us to the final big question to chew on. We are clearly on a path to a world where almost every single object has some intelligence, all powered by a tiny piece of silicon. So as everything gets a chip, what does that really mean for our future, for our privacy, and for our society?